to say that as humans, we can't control our emotions, so we have to come up with crutches. And one of those crutches is, hobbies, just doing things like that. Obviously, don't get into alcohol or drugs or anything like that. It's much better to hit the gym, go travel, all those other hobbies. If you're recently divorced, this might help you as far as controlling your emotions, or actually lack thereof controlling your emotions. One of the reasons why I tell everybody that they should travel solo or hit the gym, do other things, pick up a hobby, is because as humans, we can't control our emotions. And if you're just getting out of a divorce, if you are just getting out of a marriage, don't listen to anybody who says that you should just sit there and stew in the pain and tough it out, or the Stoics or anything like that, because you don't have to do that. Again, there's other ways to deal with the pain and the emotion of, the devastation of the divorce. And so what I would suggest you do is to come up with tricks, which is get your mind off of it in the sense that you have another hobby. And the reason why I say this, because like I said, humans, we cannot control our emotions. We're not robots. We can't control our emotions no matter what we think, or what people say. You can't control your emotions. And so, and that reminds me of kind of like a really good book I read a long time ago, by Nassim Taleb. It's called Fooled by Randomness. I'll see if I can show you right here. Fooled by Randomness. And in this book, it's specifically like page 202, something like that, he talks about how we can't control our emotions, so we have to come up with tricks. And he gives a story about, I think it's Odysseus in the Greek mythology or something, who, in order for them not to succumb to the siren sound of the goddess or whatever, and jump into the ocean and, and self-delete themselves. He says, Odysseus knew that his emotions couldn't, withstand that. So what he did is he tied himself to a tree and put wax in his ears. And that's kind of like the whole thing, is like you put wax in your ear so you can't hear the siren sound, basically saying that since you can't control your emotions, you have to come up with these crutches, essentially. And that's what I think hobbies are. I think, going to the gym, traveling, whatever your hobby is, that will help you get your mind off of, what happened in the divorce and all that. Now, I guess the tricky thing would be, what do you do with, your kids? Obviously, your kids are going to be the number one, if you have kids, the kids will be the number one priority by far, once you're separated from your wife or you're going through a divorce. And obviously, your kids will take take up all your time and your attention and all that. And you might think, well, I haven't, that's my attention and that's what I'll keep my mind off it. But as you can probably imagine, the kid will remind you of the marriage and the failed marriage. And so, in addition to your responsibility to your children, you should definitely have another hobby, another something that takes your mind off of it. Again, using the hobby as like a crutch for dealing with the sadness and the emotions and all that. So, again, hopefully that helps. Again, that's just the point of this whole video is to say that as humans, we can't control our emotions, so we have to come up with crutches. And one of those crutches is, hobbies, just doing things like that. Obviously, don't get into alcohol or drugs or anything like that. It's much better to hit the gym, go travel, all those other hobbies, to get over the pain of, the failed marriage. So anyways, I hope that helps. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thanks.